continuing. We ain't stopping, but the lessons is be very long. And I notice many people when the lessons are too long, there isn't much people looking into it. But when the lessons are short, I get views immediately. And the aim is to edify the sheep at the end of the day. So we do it to where it pleases the and those that are watching and are viewing, right? So let's continue. The audience to be exact. Right? Again, when we shall after death shall the judgment come. When we shall live again. Where are we living again? In the place of judgment. When we shall live again, and then shall the name of the righteous be manifest, and the works of the ungodly shall be declared. See? Right on the place of judgment, where righteousness was there, and the place of judgment where wickedness was there. We read that. Let's go back into Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verses 16. Very much clear. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, which is the earth, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. The transgressions, iniquity. There's again, sin can't enter into the spiritual realm or heaven. This would be taking place on the earth. Now you understand what we are going into. And even Psalms made a very clear declaration, which even when we bring out, you all try to dismiss. But it's an absolute fact that when you die, your spirit goes back to the Heavenly Father, and He gives that judgment unto you, which you are living out in the place of judgment after, which you comes back within the third and fourth generation, which is exactly what was mentioned in Exodus chapter 20 and verses 3. All right? Visiting the iniquity of their fathers upon the third and fourth generation. This is when you are going to return to live out a particular judgment that you have done in your past life, that you died from. So the Heavenly Father requires that which is past, which is a past transgressions. That's why He says, everyone have to do what? Let me get the precept again. Jeremiah, just to reiterate, Jeremiah 31 and verses 30. Pause, let me see. And it says, but everyone shall die for his own iniquity, but every man that eateth the sour grapes, his teeth shall be set on edge. You live by it, you die by it. You sow what you reap. Not you sow what he reap. And what he sow you reap. No, you sow what you reap. Which, as we know, is righteous judgment. So let me get the precept in Psalms as we hear immediately. I want to get in the blood of the Bible too, so let me grab it on this too. We ain't sticking. Let me keep to the point. Let me keep pushing to the point. Alright, the point is at Psalms 104 and verse 28, I believe. Yeah, let me see. Alright, now you see verse 28. It says, that thou gavest them they gather, that thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. NLT says, when you supply it, they gather, you open your hand to feed them, they are richly satisfied. Let's continue. It says, thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away thy breath, they die, and return to the dust. And NLT. But if you turn away from them, they panic. When you take away their breath, they die and turn again to dust. Again to dust. Verse 30. In the King James Version, it says, thou sendest forth thy spirit, and they are created. And it says, and thou renewest the face of the earth. Verse 30, when you give them your breath, life is created. This is after your death, after you die. This is why it mentioned in Ezra that the judgment is given unto those after they die. And you cannot live out the judgment in the spirit realm. But the place of judgment, which is set for judgment, is where you are going back to live it out. So listen to what it says here. Let me read it again. Thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created. But before that, listen to what it says in verse 29. Thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away thy breath, they die and return to the dust. NLT. When you take away their breath, they die and turn again to dust. Thou, King James Version verse 30, thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created. You are now back to life from the same spirit you have. You are now back to life, but in a different vessel. They are created, and thou renewest the face of the earth. Verse 30, when you give them your breath, life is created. What life? Their life, because you give them your breath. And you renew the face of the earth. Right here. The glory of Yahweh shall endure forever. Yahweh shall rejoice in his works. And we know what he is. Come on. So to say now, what we say is incorrect. Something is wrong. And we have examples of this. Not to say we don't. We do. We have many examples of reincarnation, regeneration. Let me continue. Let me go back into Psalms. No Psalms. Go back into Go back into Ecclesiastes. Read down to verse 17, I believe, and you could continue after. All right, verse 16 again. So you see where the judgment place is. And verse 17, I said in mine heart, power shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. So you see who is requiring that work, your past transgressions in your past life, making it very much clear. This is not hard to understand. This is why many of the Pharisees and the prophets of old, which is of course pertaining to the Greek and Greco-Roman Empire, had mentioned that, hey, this is what one of the old prophets that came back. Why would they say that? One of the old prophets that came. Let me get the precept. Pause. I need to get the precept. I get Luke chapter 9 and verses. I believe Luke chapter 9 and verses, like from 17, I guess. Let me see. Now I get straight to the point. Yeah, verse 18 it says, and it came to pass, as he was alone praying, his disciples were with him, and he asked them, saying, whom say the people that I am? They saying and said, John the Baptist, but some say Elias, which is Elijah, and others say that one of the old prophets is risen again. They get in the NLT now, because they ain't gonna believe man until they see it. So, all right, make sure to remove this one time. All right, Luke 9 and verses 18. Let's see how it looks in the NLT. All right. And now, not risen from the dead, because we know, come on, risen are prophets of old, an ancient, correct, right here, NLT. It says, well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and the others say you are one of the other ancient prophets risen from the dead. It's right there. Notice the quote being spoken of also Elijah in the precept, because we have as to where it was prophesied for Elijah to come back. And we can grab that real quick as a first example, which is one. We got it right here, I believe is right. I'll get a precept starting from let me go back into it. Like go into the Malachi chapter 4 and verses 4 to 5, getting straight to the point. It says, remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. It says, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. What he says? He's going to send the prophet Elijah before the coming of the great and dreadful day. And notice, Elijah is not referring to Elijah being what? Living for continuous times until that time where he was. Come on, that makes no sense. We know what it's talking about, and it was confirmed also in the New Testament by Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, which the world ignorantly calls Jesus the Christ. And seeing that Yahweh Shai had no guile found in his mouth, neither had he transgressed or sinned, that would make him, according to the scriptures, speaking the absolute truth. So when we go into it, we will make sure that we add these points also. Verse 6, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. He was sent to what? As usual, to change the hearts of the fathers and of the children to understand the ways of the Heavenly Father and turn back to Him. In other words, process of reconciliation, which when you understand what the purpose of Him coming back for, then you will also understand why John was preaching the baptism. But let's go into Matthew's now, starting with 11. We could start from verses 2, but we could jump down to about verses 7 to be exact. Or verses 8. No, verses 8. You should just let's read it down. Let me see. If it's worth it. It's supposed to be worth it regardless. Matthew 11 and verses 2, Salah. And it says, now when John had heard that in the prison that the works of Hamashiach, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? And of course he was answered, Yahushua answered and said unto them, go and show John again those things which ye do hear and see. The blind receive their sights, and the lame walk, and the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor. This is a topic for next time. I was going into the word lepers, but we know it's referring to showing. Anyways, let's continue. I don't want to continue going into because I might stray too much, right? So, and the poor have have the gospel preached to them. It says, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. Let me continue into the next lesson. So shalom until